For a long time, one of the major complaints about superhero franchises was the lack of female characters. However, in recent times, they've become more prominent with the likes of Wonder Woman and Harley Quinn starring in the DCEU, and Black Widow and Captain Marvel at the forefront of the MCU. But villainous female characters are also growing in number, especially in Marvel's flagship franchise. In this video, we'll take you through the most powerful female villains in the MCU to date, including characters from both the movies and TV shows. So, we start off with Ayesha from 2017's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And she's a little bit different from the other entries on this list, as her power doesn't come in the form of superpowers or ability in combat, but from her control over an entire civilization. That civilization is the Sovereign. They are impeccable, both physically and mentally, and they're created after a period of germination in a birthing pod. Their spacecrafts, called Omnicrafts, are remotely controlled, so their pilots don't need to physically take part in their battles. Played by Elizabeth Debicki, Ayesha commands fleets of Omnicrafts to head out into space as she wishes. And she did exactly that when she hunted down the Guardians of the Galaxy after Rocket stole some of her race's Anulax batteries. She can also detect unorthodox genes in people, as she did in Peter Quill. At the end of Guardians Volume 2, it was revealed that Ayesha was overseeing the creation of Adam Warlock. And if she has control over him, assuming he's as powerful as he is in the comics, her power in the cosmos will increase exponentially. Proxima Midnight, played by Carrie Coon, was one of the children of Thanos and a key member of the Mad Titan's Black Order. She was an orphan taken in by her adoptive father after he conquered her race, presumably killing half of it as he tends to do. Thanos then brought her up and trained her to become one of the most fierce warriors in the galaxy, and along with her adoptive siblings, she was essential in his mission to find and harness the power of the Infinity Stones. She possessed superhuman strength, durability, and agility, and was far physically superior than the likes of Black Widow and Okoye, although their incredible skill in combat allowed them to be a match for her as a pair. But she was also extremely skilled herself, clearly being a highly proficient martial artist, and also displaying mastery in swordsmanship and the use of her spear, which she could also control telekinetically to make it return to her in a similar manner to how Thor can control his weapons. She was ultimately killed during the Battle of Wakanda just when it looked like she was going to kill Black Widow.
Thank you.
Nebula may be more of an anti-hero in the MCU at the moment, but she was definitely an outright villain when she was first introduced, so her inclusion is definitely warranted here. Played by Gillan, she is a Lufomoid who, like Proxima Midnight, was an orphan taken in by her adoptive father after he conquered her race and slaughtered 50% of them. She was subsequently trained in the same way as Midnight, but as a child, she was often pitted against her adoptive sister Gamora. And whenever she lost, which was every time, Thanos would replace part of her with machinery, meaning she is very much a cyborg. She's also an incredibly skilled fighter, assassin, and pilot. She has, of course, rebelled against her father and will fight alongside the heroes of the MCU in the upcoming Avengers Endgame, where she will help to undo what the Mad Titan did in last year's Avengers Infinity War. Alisa Jones, played by both Miriam Shor and in her older years after her accident, Janet McTeer, was the mother of Kristen Ritter's Jessica Jones in the Netflix show of the same name. She had supposedly died in the same car accident that had granted Jessica her superpowers, but she was brought back to life by Carl Malice's illegal experiments at IGH. Experiments that also gave her superhuman abilities. She went on to escape from the facility and accidentally killed Jessica's then-boyfriend, and subsequently stayed in the shadows with Malice, with whom she became life partners. However, when Jessica and Trish Walker began to investigate what was going on at IGH, Alisa became protective of Malice and essentially became an enemy of her own daughter. Her superpowers included superhuman strength and speed, both of which surpassed the speed and strength possessed by Jessica, which Jessica herself admits. What made her particularly dangerous was the fact that she regularly lost control of her strength completely when she was enraged. She was ultimately killed by a gunshot to the head, fired by Trish Walker, emphasizing the fact that while she was obviously highly durable, she was still vulnerable to bullets in the same way Jessica is. Played by Krista Alvarez, Flora from the Inhumans TV series is up next. She's an Inhuman from Attilan, the city of the Inhuman Royal Kingdom. Like all Inhumans with superpowers, Flora obtained her amazing abilities after undergoing Terrigenesis and unlocking her genetic potential. Her power is the manipulation of plant life, and by touching the ground and using her powers to connect with the roots of any surrounding plant life, she can essentially control all kinds of vegetation to benefit her cause. Some of the things she's done with this ability have included creating a path through the thick Hawaiian forest, shaking down a tree where some of her opponents were positioned, and wrapping plants around her opponents' bodies and wrists in order to restrain them. Her powers are actually quite similar to some of the abilities possessed by Groot, and given that her name is Flora and that Groot is of the species Flora colossus, she has quite a lot in common with her unlikely plant-based counterpart. Ellen Brandt was originally a member of the United States Armed Forces who lost her arm while fighting for her country. Sometime after that incident, she was approached by Guy Pearce's Aldrich Killian to act as a test subject for his experimental extremis serum, an opportunity she opted to take up. Brandt endured the pain of the infusion long enough for her body to accept extremis, and sure enough, her missing limb regrew. Played by Stephanie Szostak in 2013's somewhat underwhelming Iron Man 3, Brandt possessed superhuman strength and agility, as well as a very potent regenerative healing factor and exothermic manipulation, in other words, the ability to consciously raise the temperature of her body parts as she saw fit, all as a result of extremis. She was, however, killed when Tony Stark, without his Iron Man armor, utilized his great intellect to cause a microwave to explode near her using the unique and unlikely combination of metal dog tags and a gas line. Ghost, whose real name is Ava Starr, gained amazing powers when she was exposed to a quantum accident that tragically killed both of her parents when she was just a child. Played by Hannah John Kamen, she appeared in 2018's Ant-Man and the Wasp, and her powers are the result of a mutation that was officially referred to as molecular disequilibrium, which actually involves every cell in her body being torn apart and stitched back together over and over again every day. She was also trained by S.H.I.E.L.D. as a master spy, a master assassin, and an expert martial artist and acrobat, all of which allows her to use her powers to devastating effect in combat. At the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Janet Van Dyne used the ability she had acquired courtesy of being trapped in the quantum realm for 3 decades to further stabilize Starr.
Do you know she could do that?
And it's now known that quantum energy can help her to remain stable, so who knows what she might be capable of if she reappears again in the future in the MCU. Lorelei is an Asgardian sorceress who was played by Elena Satine in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. In addition to having all the standard physical attributes of an Asgardian, such as superhuman strength and durability, she also possessed the power of persuasion when it came to men. Through the use of her voice, she's able to enthrall male members of the species to essentially be her slaves. And should any prove tougher to control than expected, her power can be enhanced via touch. Her power can, however, be nullified by a special Asgardian collar that she was forced to wear whilst imprisoned in her home realm. And any previous control over men comes to an end when she wears it. But she's extremely dangerous with or without it. That's because she's an extremely skilled combatant to boot, especially when it comes to the art of swordsmanship, as she was able to fight relatively equally with Sif, who, as everyone knows, is an extremely formidable warrior known as one of Asgard's finest. Before we get into this one, yes, we know Scarlet Witch is no longer a villain, but she certainly was when she was first introduced in the MCU in 2015's Avengers Age of Ultron, so we're happy to include her here. Played by Elizabeth Olsen, Scarlet Witch is otherwise known as Wanda Maximoff, a Sokovian whose parents were killed by a mortar shell with a Stark Industries logo on it, and who was ultimately imbued with superpowers by Hydra's experiments with Loki's scepter, which of course we now know contained the Mind Stone. Her powers include the manipulation of psionic energy, in the form of energy blasts powerful enough to destroy an Infinity Stone and repel Thanos when he was wielding 5 of them. She also possesses the power of telekinesis, which enables her to both levitate herself and physically affect opponents or objects without actually touching them. And she possesses telepathic abilities that enable her to mentally manipulate people, such as when she sent the Hulk on a rampage and inflicted nightmarish hallucinations on the Avengers. Her one weakness is that she's something of a glass cannon, meaning that she's extremely powerful but is still only made of flesh and bone. Without any shadow of a doubt, the most powerful female villain to appear in the MCU to date is Hela. She was Odin's daughter and Thor's half-sister, and having been imprisoned in Hell by her father for becoming too violent and dangerous, she re-emerged when he died.
So he's gone.
And she quickly showed how powerful she was by casually destroying Mjolnir, a weapon she used to wield with her bare hands. She also had an innate link to Asgard and could draw power from the realm itself to perform incredible supernatural feats. As the goddess of death, she was also able to use a handful of flame from the Eternal Flame to resurrect her pet giant wolf Fenris and an army of berserkers to fight on her behalf. Adding all of this to the fact that she was a highly skilled warrior, and she is definitely the most powerful, dangerous female villain we've seen in the MCU so far. But she was killed when Surtur destroyed Asgard. So what did you think of this list? Were these the most powerful female villains in the MCU? Did we miss any? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Screen Rant for more great videos like this one. Over and out.